cover topic how can an ordinary mortal in the Czech Republic invest, and we are going to have practical part with some basics, and I'll be showing you how I am doing it so that you can compare my results and based on that decide if it makes sense to be inspired by me or if you are going to actually do it yourself differently or different way. So let's kick off. So what awaits us on this journey? What the average investor in the Czech Republic looks like, which would be just a brief repetition. Know your financial indicators. We will be speaking about our total cash flow, then our total value, then we will be discussing our total debt, our overall idea of life, because that's important to know as it will tell us how much money would we need, and then we will get started in investing. I'll be sharing with you my personal experience, so we will cover pension fund that I'm using. There is a new thing called retirement investment product, which is new from 2024, and then we will cover Portu, which is a robo-advisory platform in Czech Republic. I'm using it, so I'll just give you a brief overview and then describe some products inside Portu. So what the average investor in the Czech Republic looks like. Let's begin with the end in our mind. So average return of the world stock index is around 8%, and we will be using this as our benchmark, which means if we will be making more than that through our investment, it's pretty good. If we would be making 8%, it's also still good. If we would be making less, then we may think how to improve it. Then average wage in Czech Republic before taxes, it's 41,200, which is 1,800 US dollars or 1,700 approximately euros. The most common amount of money that Czech person can save is up to 2,000 Czech crowns. And then, which is very important, the average person or all of us has around 67 hours of free time per week. The reason I'm mentioning this is because we have to choose what we want to do. We can't do everything because we have limited time. It's pretty important to know our financial ratios, because without them we don't know if we need to improve or if we are within limit. So what is cash flow? Cash flow is difference in between income and expenses for the month. We want to have positive cash flow, which means we are left with money in the end of the month. If we have negative cash flow, it means that we need more money, and that's definitely not a good situation or state to be in. The cash flow can be changed through income or cutting down expenditures. It's always better to try to increase income because it changes our mindset and it's also increasing our self-confidence. In case of expenditures, just what makes sense. For example, if we have 6 streaming services, we are watching just one, then by all means cut the another 5. But please do not try to overcut on your spendings, because it may really quickly decrease the quality of your life and put you into not long-term ideal state of mind. It's definitely better, if possible, to rather increase your income. Then we would be discussing something which is called total value, which means our property minus our debt. We want to be in positive total value, which means our property is bigger than what we owe to others, which means than our debt. If we have negative total value, we should work to actually make it positive. Then we will be discussing our total debt to assets ratio. which means we ideally want to get less than 40, which is like all our properties against all our debt, and the debt to assets ratio should be 40%. That's my opinion, ideal situation. Of course, if possible, we can be totally debt free if it makes sense. Then less than 60% is usually normal state, and more than 60% we are getting into quite risky condition. So it's good then to work to decrease it, ideally below 40 to be super safe. Or we can also say that it's a ratio of debt payments to income. Now, our overall idea of life allows us to calculate the financial requirements. Why is it important? So, do we, for example, want an apartment or a house? Or do we want to drive a luxury car? Because if we know what we want, we can calculate or estimate the amount needed and then convert it into monthly income required. And this will work as a brake for us to stop chasing after money, because otherwise there is never enough money. I mean, what is enough? Million, billion, 20 billions, who knows? So if you know what you need, when you reach that goal, then you start enjoying your life. If you still make more, that's amazing, but it's simply not at that point in time your primary goal. Because otherwise you may realize in the end of our lives that simply we are chasing money and there is no time left to enjoy our life. Now let's get into practical example how to calculate these indicators. So let's see together what we can do about our ratios or calculation of cash flow. So the simplest first option is simply we know our income, we know how much money we are left with in the end of month, and if we simply subtract these two things, we will figure out our expenses. So this is the easiest option. Simply using our bank account, we will check how much we've earned and how much we are left. Because then we can work with these remaining money. We can either invest them or do whatever we want. Now let's see a little better option, which would be option 2. In this case, we would be tracking, let's say 3-4 months our expenses, and then we will divide these expenses into several components or groups. For example, debt payment, then payment for services like TV or water, electricity, and so on, or consumption, which can be food payments or, for example, gas into our car. Then we can separately calculate the totals. This will give us much better overview, and if we know our earnings every month, then we can also start calculate ratios. So for example, we can calculate debt to earnings ratio if here is 45,000 and we selected earnings as 100,000 because it would be easier to then show you an example how to calculate it, and then 45,000 is from 100,000 45%. So in our case, we are paying 45% of our salary to service debt. And then we can exactly in the same way calculate the ratios for services and so on. And then we can also calculate all these totals, which would be 72,000. And then we know that expenses to earnings, expenses to 100,000 would be 100,000 against 72,000, that's 72%. Which means if it's 72%, then we are left with 28%, which is roughly 28,000. So this is free cash flow. So every month, if we pay all these things which we have to pay, we are left with 28,000. Now we can also calculate so-called total ratios, which means we know what we own, we assign the price tag to it. For example, we can say house 8 million Czech crowns, car 600,000. Then we have some cash saved, let's say 500,000. Then we know our debt. So we have mortgage loan, which is 6,400,000. And if we simply add all these things and subtract from it loan, then we know what is our net worth. And then we can also calculate how much is 6,400,000 against this total number. This is our total property or total worth. And then we will figure out that we are in debt from 70%, which means if we sell all these things, pay off this loan, then we will be left with 30% of this total. So 70%, as we were discussing in our presentation, is too much ideally. There should be something below 40% to be super safe. And now, why it's important to know the need of money. If we know our dreams, for example, if we want a house with big garden, we will again assign a price tag. Now in case of Czech Republic, if you want to take mortgage loan, you have to own 20% of your money, which means 20% from 8 million is 1,600,000. Now, from the previous calculation, we know that our free cash flow every month is almost 28,000, and that we've already saved 500,000. So we have to save to have this 20% to take mortgage loan and then buy this house. So we have to save 1,100,000, and with 28,000 it will take us 39 or nearly 40 months to save this amount of money. And then we also have to take into account that when we take another mortgage loan, it will add another 20,000 per month service payment or payment for this mortgage loan. So now if we just quickly jump back into option 2, that would mean that we already have some mortgage loan and we will add another 20,000, which will be extra 20,000 monthly payment after 3 years, because we've mentioned that to save this amount of money, it will take us 40 months to save it. So after 3 years, we will be paying here 20 more thousand to service mortgage loan. And this means, in such case, we would get into debt to earnings ratio of 65, which is not good. So we will have to, within the next 3 years, ideally also increase our earnings at least by 20,000, which would decrease the debt to earnings into more manageable 54%. So this is how we can work with our ratios to make sure that we are financially healthy and safe, because otherwise, if we go back, we would have like 92,000 expenditures. We would be left just with nearly 8,000 of free cash flow every month. So if anything happens, like we need new washing machine, or for example, there would be increase in the mortgage loan payments, we are in not ideal situation. So that's the reason why we are making sure that our ratios are proper. And now what I'm personally doing, I'm actually writing down every expense and then sort it into category. So let me just show you inside browser. I'm using e-účty.cz. I'll just quickly show you how it looks like. So you can just create some accounts. For these accounts, you can then create transactions, and you can put these transactions into categories. And then you have here many overviews, so you can sort it, for example, for this month, for previous month, based on category, and so on. Of course, there is so much similar applications. This one is web application, but you can find one for yourself, or you can, for example, just write it into Excel. So that's it. That's how to make sure you have overview of your ratios. Now let's get started with investing. So I'll share with you personal experience. In my case, I'm using Pension Fund, and please be aware that this is Czech Republic specific, from Conseq, and it's called Zenit. What is nice in case of Czech Republic, that employer can contribute into your personal pension fund and it's exempt from some taxes. And then in case of Czech Republic, there is possibility of state contribution. The state is contributing into our pension funds, and then also we can deduct our contributions up to 48,000 Czech crowns, which is new limit from 2024. Obviously the pension fund is not optimal solution because there is a lot of fees, but it's definitely much better than to do nothing. And if you can use it with all the benefits, then it may make sense. So now I'll just show you exactly what I'm using, how it looks like. Let's check together what I've selected as my pension fund. So I opted for a product from Czech company called Conseq. The product itself is called Zenit. And the idea of this product is at the beginning, when you are young and still have, let's say, 20, 30 years until you retire, it's trying to invest as most as possible into dynamic assets, for example, like shares, and then later, the closer you are to your retirement, it's moving more and more into bonds, so that there is lower probability that there will be huge drop in the value of your investment, because close to your retirement you want to start using this money. Another reason why I opted for this product is because everything is nicely described here, it's clear. If you compare it, for example, against offers from many bank institutions, there are like thousands of amazing graphical advertisements. They will give you 3,000 or 2,000 Czech crowns and so on. But in this case, everything is clear documentation. When I wanted to see the previous, let's say, performance of the investment fund, it was quite easy to find it. And now I'll show you exactly so in my case, at this point in time, I'm already running this strategy 53 months. I invested 150,000. The state gave me 11,500 to support the saving, because in case of Czech Republic it's supported by the state or government. Then I earned 35,000, and this is bonus that you are staying with the company. So in total, at this point, it's something around 200,000. And obviously, in case of pension fund, you can start using it the soonest around you are 60 or 65. So that's my decision in your case. As I mentioned, it's not exactly optional thing what to do, but if you are scared to do anything else, it's definitely much better than to do nothing. And also, in the past, it was only way how you were able to collect the, let's say, benefits from your employer, because the employer was allowed to chip into your pension fund. So this was only way how to collect these payments. So that's the reason why I have it. So that's it. And now we are getting into Portu, which is Czech Robo-advisory platform, which means that you just send their money and then this platform automatically buy for you shares, or more precisely, ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, which we were covering in the previous video. What is nice, Portu offers Portu for Kids, which is discounted investment with a fee as low as 0.25% per year. And then we have something which is called Portu Portfolio or tailor-made portfolio, where you can control it. So the first option is fully designed and controlled by Portu, but in case of tailor-made portfolio, you can select exactly what you want Portu to buy for you, and then it automatically invests. You just send their money and they are automatically invested as per set strategy. The fees are around 1% per year, but if you sign for 15 years long investment, so that you promise that you won't be taking the money in the next 15 years, you can get discount up to 40%, and then the fee is around 0.5, 0.6, which is pretty good. What is amazing in case of Portu is that it's also offering you the currency risk hedging out of the box within the same fee. Please be aware, in case you start using Portu or you start using Portu saving reserve, very likely you will have to fill in your tax, and that means that it won't be done by your employer in case you are employee, but you will have to do it. But please don't be aware of it, it's super simple, and on portal mojedanie.cz you can simply fill it in, and there is also wizard, so it's, from employee point of view, it's super simple. Now I'll show you again practically how in my case Portu looks like and what are my returns. This time we will check my Portu account. So what is Portu? Portu is a robo-advisory platform available in Czech Republic. Robo-advisory means that you are sending some amount of money. It can be regular installment every month, and then Portu automatically invest instead of you. In case of Portu, this investment is usually done through so-called ETF, or we can say exchange traded funds. You can select several options. In case of Portu, it's actually a huge ecosystem, so you can invest into ETFs by fully automatically generated strategy. You can select your own strategy. For example, I want to invest just into S&P 500, or I want to invest into some specific area like energy or AI and so on. All this is possible to do with Portu. You can also invest into some alternative investments like cryptocurrencies and or for example art, and then Portu also offers the platform called Opportunity, and there are opportunities to invest into something. Usually it's about alternative investments. Now there is, for example, some bonds of company which is building houses, so that's something you can evaluate, and if you decide, you can invest. Now in my case, I'm using the custom strategy, and then I'm also using something which is called investment reserve. It's kind of saving account. So in my case, in total, I have here this amount of money. This is my total appreciation of these money. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using the custom or tailor-made strategy. I opted for investing just into S&P 500. In case of Portu, what is really amazing is that they are offering to you the automated currency risk hedging. For normal investor, this is pretty tough to do. As I explained, usually this hedging is available just in 1 year horizon, but if you want to invest in 30 years, then it's not actually cost optimal to do it alone in this case, because Portu is a huge company with huge financial power. They can provide this hedging within the fee. The fees are usually around 1% per year, but if you promise Portu that you will be investing long term, which means you will, for example, keep the money there next 15 years, they will give you up to 40% discount. Now in case of Czech Republic, as we are using here Czech crown, but the majority of investments or exchange traded funds are within dollars or euros, this is amazing, and it's also able to automatically rebalance your portfolio and so on. This all within a single fee, which is pretty competitive. So here you can see my result. It really means nothing, it just means that I was lucky to put the money into S&P 500 at right time. So here is like from the beginning, and here is the appreciation per annum, which means per year. So this is ETF on S&P 500, and now I'll just show you the investment reserve. And an investment reserve is nothing else like saving account. In my case, I just have here money to protect them as much as I can against inflation. I'm just waiting for investment opportunity. It's very easy to transfer the money within Portu, and in case you want to take this money out, it usually takes few working days, which in my opinion is actually benefit, because you have to wait for the money so you can think over what you want to do. Because usually it's smart to hold some amount of money, like 1 up to 3 salaries, into your current or saving account, so that you can use them immediately. If, for example, you have to fix your car or buy some new washing machine, these money are rather meant for investment. But because you are waiting and analyzing investment opportunities, at least you are earning what you can. Because at this point, Czech National Bank set the interest rate pretty high, so we are using advantage of it. And because Portu puts these money into saving accounts inside the bank, in case of investment reserve, of course, they are insured up to the equivalent of 100,000 euros. So that's it. That's how you can use Portu. Everything is nicely described, so if you don't understand something, usually it's just sufficient to hover over this small question mark and everything is explained. So this is how I invest in case of Portu, and if I compare it against other competing options, it's definitely well worth the amount they are charging, which is around 1%, or after discount around 0.5, 0.6. So that's it. And how do you plan to invest? What's your dream or idea how to protect your money against inflation and appreciate them?